Hi everyone, Dr. Minichino here with the next stage in our low poly city. I'm going to show you guys how to build the building, taking it step by step from windows to the front wall and then using that front wall to create all four walls, adding a floor and a ceiling to that, and then making this 3 stories tall. So I'm going to start here by building the window frame, and that's probably going to take the longest amount of time. So I'm going to start with a box, a primitive, and I'm going to change my sizes. So I'm going to come over here to size, and I'm going to make the X direction 5 because I want it 5 thick. The walls are going to be 4 thick, and this will make it stick out just a little bit. I'm going to change the Y direction, which is this direction, to 4. And I'm going to change the Z to 80 because I want it 8 high. Now I'm going to change my location, and I know that the center of this is at 0. I know this is 160 in the X direction, so that means the edge of this is at 80. So I'm going to move the X position of this to 80. And then I'm going to move the Y position, since this is the left side of the window, I'm going to move the Y position to minus 98. That'll give me a good location to do my work. Now I want to take the Z up on this. Right now the grass is 3 high, but I'm only going to move it up 2 plus 10 because I want it a foot off. So I'm going to change this to 12. So right now I've got the left side of the window frame. I'm going to click on it. I'm going to do a Control D, and I'm going to move the minus Y location to minus 178, which is 80 away. Now I'm going to have to move this in a little bit because when you look and see that circle, that's 2 inches in from the edge, 2 inches in from both edges. And I want to have this from outside to outside to be 80. So I'm going to do a Control D, and then I'm going to change the rotation of this to minus 90. And I'm going to move this one over to the right, and then we'll pull this piece of frame in. And I'm also going to move it up 2. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move its Z location to 14. And that'll move it up. And then I'm going to move the Y location to minus 180, and that's going to move it over. And then this one I need to move over 4 to get it to where I need it to be. So I'm going to move this as minus 102. Now if we look at this, our frame is now squared, squared, and good location. I know that this one is 80 high and it's starting at 12, so that means the top of it is at 92. I'm going to make this top frame by doing a Control D and clicking on this, and I'm going to change this Z location to 90. And the reason I'm changing it to 90 is because that's 2 down from the top, and you can see now I've got that nice strong corner there. So the next thing I want to do is I want to put a piece of glass in this. So I'm going to grab another box, a primitive, okay, and I'm going to zoom out. I may have grabbed 2 boxes just then, so we'll find out in a second. Yeah, I did. So that's okay. We'll leave that one there. So I'm going to take this one and I'm going to move it over. And I know exactly where I need to put it. I need to put it at minus 198, and I need to change the size of this. So I'm going to start with my size and get it down to the size that I want it. Since it's 80 by 80, that window frame, I'm going to change this to 76 by 76. So 70, I'm sorry, the X, so front to back, we need to make it thin, so we're going to make it 1. Our Y needs to be 76. And our Z needs to be 76. And that will give us that piece of glass. Now we need to get the location right. So we're going to get the Y position to minus 138 and the X position to 80. So are we where we want to be? Yes, we are. We're right in the middle of it. Now we just need to get it up off of the floor. So let's zoom in. We're going to get it up off of the floor. And we can do that by changing the Z on this to 14. Now I need to move this over 2 to the right. So I need to change my Y position here to minus 140. Now that's perfectly centered in the frame, and we've got a window, but we got a window we can't see through. So while we have that clicked on, we're going to come down here and we're going to change the opacity, or the ability to see through it, down to a 35. So that's good. It gives a little bit of tint to the glass. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to change each of these, and I'm going to put them into a group by holding down the Shift key and clicking on each one. And then I'm going to make them a group. So I'm going to come up here, I'm going to click Group, and I'm going to call this group Window Frame. Okay, and now that I have Window Frame, I'm going to affect the roughness down. I want to bring that down to about 10. And I'm going to bring the metalness up to about 55, 60. So let's see what 60 looks like. So we have some nice shiny metal now. So that's good. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to also hold down Shift key and click on my glass. So that's box 5. And now we're going to turn this into a group, and we're going to call this group Window. So now we have Window Frame and Window, and we have box 5, which is the glass. So we're going to double click this and we're going to call this Glass. We do this so it's easier for us in the future to go back and find the different parts of it to turn these into duplicates. So now that we have this, we have a new center location. We know where our Y location is on this. It's at minus 140. We know our X location, and I want to move this over to the side. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to say this is going to go to minus 280. So I'm going to do a Control D. I'm going to change the location on this to minus 280. So now I have two windows with a space in between them, because if this one is at minus 140, this is 80 wide, so this means that this edge here is at minus 180. Now you notice I'm writing numbers down on this, and that's so I can remember the location. So this is window 1. Window 2, that's going to have an edge. So our center point for window 2 is at minus 280. That means the far right side is another 40, or minus 320. And the far left side is minus 240. So this side right here is at minus 240. That means from minus 240 to minus 180, we have space for a door that right now looks like it's 50 wide. I think so. So let's double check this location. We're at minus 280. I want to put 20 between here and the door, and then I want the door to be, oh, let's say 30, and then another 20. So that would be 30. So 20, 30, and 20 would be 70. So I want 70 from the edge of this, which is at minus 180, so I need the edge of this at minus 250. So this window I have to move to minus 290, I think. And we'll see how that works. All right, so now I want to make the door. I've got window, window. So I'm going to do Control D, and I'm going to pull this over, and directly in between these two, we're at, let's see, minus 140 and minus 290. So the edge of this one was at minus 180, and then we want 20 and 15, so minus 200, so minus 215. So this should be at minus, this center one should be at minus 215. I was at minus 214, so minus 215. Good. Now I'm going to make this narrower and bring it down. So I'm going to take my Z down to 2. So it's sitting down on the concrete. And then I'm going to unconstrain this. And I want my Y to come down to 30. So I'm going to change this to 30. Now you're going to notice what it does is it changes the thickness on these sides, and we'll fix that in a minute. And then I want to change my Z down to 70. So we'll fix this by zooming in now. And we're going to look for this. And right now it's called window 2. And we're going to change this to door. And we're going to come down here and look for this box. So this box has a width right now of 1.5, and we want to change it. We want to change this to 4. You'll notice it grows in both directions. This piece here, we already know the location of this piece. This piece is at minus 40. So we need to take this piece and move it to the left a little bit. So we're going to change this to minus 36, just to get it back in line with this bottom piece. Minus 35.5, I think. And that should be pretty close. Yep. Okay, now we need this piece here. We're going to unconstrain this. We're going to change this to 4. And then again, because we did not change the length of this one, we're going to move this in a little bit. We're going to change this to 40. Nope, other way. Sorry, 36. Okay, is that where we want it? How about 35.5? And that looks about it. Now we're going to click on this bottom one, and this bottom one is 3.5, so we're going to unconstrain here and change this to 4 and go to the top one and do the same thing on the top one. We're going to just change that to unconstrain, change that to 4. Okay, now you zoom out. We've got, uh-oh, what happened there? Well, we got to fix that. Unconstrain this. And this needs to be 5. And this needs to be, well, somehow, let me go and Control Z back out and make that disappear. Well, maybe I can fix it. So sometimes you're going to find that you make mistakes on things, and I made a mistake on this one. So we got 5 and 4, and this one should just be 70. So somehow that got to be 186. So we fixed that. And now we've got, it's just a little bit too thick here. Let's see what's going on. So again, this is good exercise in fixing a problem. So we're going to look at box 1. We're 5, 4, and 70. Box 2, 1.875. So what we need to do is make these thicker. So unconstrain this, make this 5. Unconstrain, or click on this top one, unconstrain this and make it 5. And the same with the bottom one. Unconstrain and make the X 5. Sometimes things get mixed up and we just have to work with them to get them fixed. Now that looks good. Okay, and we have some nice shine there. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to put a wall here. We're going to make this wall 30. We've got a wall here that's 20, a wall here that's 20, and a wall here on this end that's 30. So let's zoom out a bit. And oh, look, we have a nice block we can use. So let's change the size on this first. We need it to be 4 in the X, and we need it to be 30 in the Y. And then we need our X location to be 80. And we know that this window is at minus 140. So this edge is minus 100. So we need to change the Y location for this to minus 85. And now we have a wall. And that's not good. We have a wall right next to our window. Problem is, this wall is sitting down on the floor, so we need to raise this up to 2. So now we're good. Now we can control D this, and we're going to move it all the way down here to the other end. So we can just pull that down there, and we'll get a location for this. Since we've got a window right here, we know that location is minus 290, so the edge 40 away would be minus 330, plus this would be at minus 345. So half of that 30 wall would be 15. So now we've got our 2 outside walls. We're going to add a wall here and a wall here next. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to do a Control D, and I'm going to bring it over here, right to about the center, and that's right about minus 240, I think. And we're going to make this smaller now because this is only 20 wide, so we're going to unconstrain this and change this to 20. And I keep getting these. I don't know why. I'm no longer the AD. So that's good. Now we're going to Control D that again. Move it over here. And we're going to make this minus 190. We're going to zoom in, take a look, see how everything looks so far. It looks good to me. Now we just have to make a wall section here, 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 and here. So we're going to take this, and we're going to do a Control D again. We know that this is at minus 140, right? So we're going to take that second wall, and we're going to change this to minus 140. That's going to put it in the center. We're now going to unconstrain this, and we're going to make this Y 80. And then we're going to change the Z on this to 10. And that gives us the wall underneath the window frame. Okay. Now we're going to click on that. We're going to do Control D. We know the location of this window is at minus 290. So we're going to come back over here and change this Y location to minus 290. And now we have it underneath both windows. Click on this one, Control D again. I know the top of this is at 90. So I'm going to move this wall up in the Z to 90. 92, I think. Good. Okay. So now I've got above that window, below this one. Now I just need to click on this, Control D, change the Y location to minus 140, and I have it above those two windows. Control D one more time. I know the center location of my door is at minus 215, so click back over here, change my Y location to minus 215, and now I'm just going to bring this down to the top. So I'm going to change this to 72, I believe, and then I'm going to narrow it to 30. So I'm going to unconstrain, change my Y down to 30, and I'm going to change my Z to 30. So now I have all my walls, my frame, everything's all set up for the facade. So I'm going to put all of this now into a group and call it facade. So I've got this one. Hold down my shift key now, add in all my additional walls. Don't want to forget any. And I want to add in my window and my door and my other window. So now I have everything together. I'm going to put this into a group, and I'm going to call that group facade. And that's F-A-C-A-D-E, facade. That was the hardest part of this whole thing. The next step on this is so much easier. So we know that this whole thing is 290 long. So the Y on this, from this edge to this edge, is 290. So if I know that this X location is 80, so I want 290 plus 80 is going to give me 370. So I'm going to do a Control D, and I'm going to change my X location to 370. And I've got another wall. So I'm going to spin around here, and I'm going to click on that wall, and I'm going to do another Control D. But now I'm going to do a rotation of, I think it's minus 90. Yep, Z minus 90. So minus 90. And I know that this is 290 long, right? So half of this wall, half of the 290 is 145. So if my Y location is minus 215 and half of the length of this wall is 145, that means I need to place this wall in the Y location at minus 70. So I'm going to change my Y location to minus 70. Oh, wrong one. Oh no. Control Z. Click on that one and change that one to minus 70. And now I'm going to change the X location to bring it back. And we know the same thing about this. We know that this is 80. So 80 plus half of the length of the wall is 145. So 80 plus 145 is 225. So that means our X location for this needs to be 225. Oh, I keep doing that. Control Z, click on this. Our X location needs to be 225. There we go. Okay, we have 3 walls to the building, and we just need to now take this wall and put it over here. So we're going to do Control D, and we have a minus 70 plus 290, so that would be minus 360. So we're going to change this to minus 360, and voila! we have 4 outside walls to our building. So now, click outside. We're going to add in another box. And we're going to come over here and unconstrain the size. We're going to change it to 290. Actually, let's change it to 286. Come in on both sides a little bit by 286. And then change the Z to 4. And then we're going to move that. We know that the center of this wall is at minus 215. So we're going to click here. We're going to change our Y to minus 215. And then we know our center of this wall is at is at 225 in the X, because now we want to move it that way. So we're going to click here. We're going to go to the X, and we're going to make this 225 in the X. So now we've got a building with a floor and 4 walls with windows. But I need to move this up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create this as a group now. So I have the floor. So I'm going to click on each of these outside walls, and I'm going to create another group. So right now I have the 4 walls, and I'm going to make sure I have that floor. So shift, hold that floor. Yep, there's the floor. Okay, so I'm going to make this into a group, and we're going to call this group Story. Now we're going to do a Control D, and we're going to lift this up. Uh-oh, we took something out, so we're going to have to fix that. So let's go Control Z, Control Z. One more time, Control Z. There we go. Okay, so I took that floor out by mistake. So I'm going to add that floor back in. So that was box 13 was the floor. Now I can create my group. And I'm going to call this Story. Not Tory, but Story. Put a capital S there. All right. So now I have this as a whole piece, and I'm going to Control D this, and I'm going to lift it up. Now I know that my 0, 0 point needs to be at 100 because my height of my first floor was 100 to the top of the wall. And then I'm going to Control D again, and I'm going to change the Z on this to 200. Isn't that awesome? Now I'm going to make a ceiling for this. So I'm going to come here, I'm going to click on this top story. We're going to scroll down and find it. So down here somewhere. I know you're in here. There we go. Okay. Now we just have to find which one is that floor. So we know most of this here is all of the window frames and all of that. Maybe down here at the bottom. Window frame, door, facade, window frame, door, box 13. I think, yep, box 13 is the floor. So I'm just going to duplicate that, Control D, and I'm going to change the Z on that. Up to 100. And I think I want to actually make it 96. So it sits flush with the top. And there we go. It's actually slightly recessed, which makes it look more like a real roof. So now that I have this all done, I've got my whole building done. What I'm going to do is I am going to add all of this into one big group. So I'm going to click on my first floor. I'm going to click on my second, whoa, sorry, let me look at it this way. I'm going to click on my first floor. click on my second floor, click on my third floor, and then click on my roof. Why did that not click? I want the whole thing. I want all of it. Why are you not clicking the top? Okay, well, let's do it. Let's do it like this. We'll go here, 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 and here. Oh, I know why. I know why it's doing that. Okay, so click that one, and this one. So that should have all of it now, because this roof I made as a part of the top group. So now I'm going to add this into one group, and I'm going to call this 3-story building. I'm going to bring this all the way up to the top because it's going to be a group up here. So we're going to call this 3-story building. And I've got my first building. Now, what I want to do with this, because now this is like really huge, so I'm going to click on this and I want to bring down the scale of it to about 40. So I'm about 0.4. So I'm going to bring this down to right around, let's say 0.4 looks like it's going to look good. So 0.4. Okay. Now I just need to move it back over a little bit. So I know the width and the length of it, and I know my locations here. I can actually get this exactly where I want it, because I know the edge is 80, and I know the length and the width of this is 118. So half of 118 is 59 and 80, so that would be 139 for my location. So minus 139, and my X is 139. Oh, no, it's not that big. It is 139. There. So now when I zoom in, it's perfectly placed on the edge. And I can do a few neat things with this. Now I can start changing my colors. So let's say I want this to be kind of a blue color here. I can change the whole building to blue. And remember, I know that the roof is a separate piece, right? So I could come all the way down here where that roof is. Box 14, I think. Yep. And I can change just the roof color to black. So it would look like a real building with a roof. So that's how you make your first building. And now that I have a first building, I can do a Control D. And you'll be surprised how fast this goes at this point. And remember, these are 118 wide, so our location here for this one was minus 139. So we're going to go 139 and 118. So that's going to give us our next location at 257. So this one, we want to have it minus 257. And now they're right next to each other. And if I want to move this one back a little bit, right now it's at 139. Let's say I'm going to move the X to 143. That didn't move it much, so let's make it 149. That moved it better. Okay. So now I have a little bit of an offset. And the cool thing is I can still see through the buildings. I can see actually all the way through from one side to the other if I wanted to. And then I can go to this building And I can change the color on this building. So let's say I come over here and I'm going to have this one go more of like a pink, pinkish red. Take the color back down here a little bit. Okay. Now you notice to change the roof too. So we just have to find this 3-story building and come down all the way down here to the bottom and change the color of the roof again. So sometimes I'll do all the roofs at one shot. So I'm just scrolling down here near the bottom. I'm looking for that last box. That's the roof. It's one of the neat things about doing the roof last. You actually can find it fairly easily. So we're at box 14. That's the roof. And I'm just going to pull the color down here into the black. Okay, so now I get black roof and black roof. Now if I wanted these exactly the same, I could do a color picker. So I could grab this and I could come over here and click on it, and it's going to tell me that it's 8C, 8C, 8C. So then I can go over to this one and change the color to match. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull this down in here like this because I want that a nice dark black. All right, so there's our 2 buildings, offset slightly from each other, 2 different colors with windows all the way around, and we can see right through them. So I would probably add one more building down here on the end. So Control D and move this down on the end. Come on, there you go. And put this right over here. And now we have a little setback. I'd actually probably move this one back a little bit more. This was at 149. If we make it 159, moves it back a little bit more. We know the Y location is minus 257. So minus 257, and we know that the size is 118. So that's 365. And the location on this is 372, so we're going to go minus 365. Now we're, oh, no, it could be 375. Minus 375. That looks about right. Okay, so there is 3 buildings and your park. And it looks like you guys should be ready to do a couple more of these on your own. I probably wouldn't push this one back so far because I can see the edges there. So let me click on this center building, and I'm going to bring it back to minus 154. I think that'll work. I'll make it 152. That way it hides those frames completely right here on the edge. All right. So that's it for tonight. Your next stage on this is going to be to build a couple of buildings over here. So once you have these built, it's easy to Control D, copy them, put them over here, and change the heights. And I'll go into how to add another story to this using an existing building. So you can make these 3-story and 4-story. Okay, and then we'll also talk about how to put a facade on the top, like ramparts or something, so you can put a name on each building. All right, so that's it for tonight. Thanks a lot, and I hope you guys have a good weekend. See you next week when I come back.